So it's getting confusing a little bit. Let's start with Huarong.
Sure. So, well, the latest with Huarong is, as you say, they're transferring this equity stake away, and they're also considering, or it's going to try and negotiate with these key institutional investors, a debt-to-equity swap on one of its trust units.
Okay.
And so I think, the reaction so far this morning has been mixed. Maybe perhaps leaning a little bit more to the kind of positive side. I think certainly it's positive that Huarong is taking steps to restructure. But I think, of course, the caution here is that this potentially doesn't represent the full plan. We still don't have clarity over what's going to happen with a kind of financial restructuring of the bonds. And ultimately, that's really what investors want clarity over.
Do we know when they're going to report earnings?
So there are two key dates here. That's one of them, which is, are they going to report those earnings before the end of August? And the second would be this EGM that they're going to hold on August 17th. So these are really the two key dates that investors are now watching.
Okay, what's next? If it's not this, what else are you tracking, you and your team?
Well, the broader kind of high-yield space has been really volatile of late. We've seen yields going into double digits again, worst performance since March last year during that kind of incredible pandemic sell-off. So we're really looking to see just how far these fears about Evergrande and, of course, in the IG space, Huarong, are going to pervade into the broader market.
Yeah, in fact, I think let me just look at my notes here just to be completely accurate on this one. So you're looking at the 5-year AA spread, widest in about 6 months, as you were just talking about here. I think we have another one here, which is, I think, IG over, high yield over IG, Asia dollar bonds, also going the same way. Does this seem, based on the people that you talk to, seem to be the trend these next few months until we get a resolution to both these issues? Because I would imagine that's what's keeping this spread moving up.
Absolutely, yes. I think the expectation is that we are going to continue to see this type of divergence between investment grade and high yield. And of course, the next maturity for Evergrande isn't until next year, so for the offshore investors. So there is quite a long way to go till we have a really big sort of official credit event. And again, with Huarong, any potential restructuring, of course, will also take quite a while to resolve. So I think the expectation is that these two kind of massive giants of the dollar bond market will, of course, continue to worry investors.
Yesterday, the good news from Evergrande was that they were selling this internet unit. I just came across the headline this morning about a Chinese ad firm seeking to freeze some of Evergrande's units, assets as well. What is the latest now on this Evergrande story? Are they able to kind of ease some of investor concerns now as they continue to look at different options?
Yeah, so I think, that kind of freezing of the assets and more legal cases, we have seen that sort of ramping up, or at least publicly sort of ramping up over the last couple of weeks. And I would say that that's probably likely to continue as kind of creditors and suppliers start to worry that they may not be kind of make good on their obligations. Clearly, the kind of internet business news was positive. However, again, this morning, Moody's has cut Evergrande further into junk. So there are kind of continuing external pressures. And even while Evergrande can kind of open the spigots here and there, the question is whether they can do that in a broad enough way and kind of significantly enough to really shift the direction of travel here from an investor point of view.
Yeah, CAA1, Moody's outlook's negative on that one. That's the long-term corporate family rating, as they call it here. And just back to the Huarong story, I'm going to try and tie that back in. So I think we have a graphic which shows us this. What we've seen, and I think you and I were having this conversation about 2 months ago, that it's the near-dated bonds. They're going to be okay, right? Because they seem to be plugging their liquidity needs based on, I guess, what comes first. And I think the July bond went all the way back to about 100. Is this a sort of thing that maybe we should be keeping an eye on? Like the near-term bonds are going to be okay. It's the ones further out that we should be worried about.
Absolutely, and we're still seeing that divergence that we chatted about 2 months ago, which really is a kind of an indicator of, what more needs to be done to reassure investors. I think that's absolutely fair. Huarong is said to call back that perp, so potentially that's a positive sign that it's going to continue honouring these kind of near-term obligations, and of course it has that support from state banks through the end of August. It's really kind of that post-end of August. Are we going to see results? And what happens after that, I think that's where uncertainty really starts to kind of mount.